I grew up in Ethiopia, in East Africa, in a town called Piazza. A typical day there for me. I mean, I left when I was 8, so I would have been going to school. I would go to school, playing football with my friends on the streets, and my sister and I would walk to school. It was a fair distance. I can't really measure in kilometers now, but we'd walk to school and we'd walk back, and I'd come back and play football. Life was good for all intents and purposes. When you're 8, you just want to sort of do what your friends are doing and eat, and as long as those needs are met, you don't really worry about anything else. There isn't like bills pressing on you, or society or wants and needs and dreams. You don't really have. Well, I dreamt to be a football player, but I guess that's like every 8-year-old's dream anyway. So whether you're living in this part of the world or you're living in that part of the world, it's still like, yeah, still a childish dream, but that was it. And for all intents and purposes, it was being fulfilled because I could play football after school every day. So my dad was sort of absent most of my life. He would come and go as and when, but that was normal there as well. It was normal for dads to not be present and households to be brought up by their mothers. And my grandfather lived a few streets away, so I'd frequent his house as well. And yeah, spent some time there. He had a coloured TV, whereas we had a black and white one. So football games, the ones they showed, you could watch on the end. That was an occasion to go over and have some fun and watch football with them. That was fun. I was happy, but it was extreme poverty. Like I said, you don't really equate these things of you don't really feel the pressures of it when you're that age. You just sort of get on because it's all you know, right? There wasn't really. It was in an affluent area. Most houses were made out of mud in the area. There wasn't really running water. You had to sort of walk and get water. The nearest hospital, there was queues outside of there and everything. And there was taverns and stuff people used to frequent. And there was it was very dirty. It wasn't like nothing you'd see here, Yeah. So when I was 8, my dad and I came to Kenya, and my father was trying to get refugee asylum, and he took me with him, and the hope was that we would get refugee asylum in Kenya, and then from Kenya we'd then move on to Canada with our refugee status. But somewhere along the line, he sort of got disillusioned with the whole process, and yeah, he sort of went back to Ethiopia, leaving me in Kenya with a family that had taken us in, and that were helping with our adoption process and everything. And eventually they ended up adopting me, and yeah, and I lived with them and I became their son, and they took me in, they embraced me. My dad he's from Plymouth, he's a white man from Plymouth, and my mom was an Ethiopian woman. They'd had 2 kids of their own, and they had 3 kids of their own, and I came into the mix, and there was another 2 kids adopted as well. So there was 6 boys in the household. Yeah, so that was Kenya. Oh, that was pretty cool. It was a bit more like upmarket, if you like. There were shops you could go to. And I'd never experienced a supermarket or, Sainsbury's or anything like that. Not that they have them in Kenya, but the equivalent of, So going to one of those for the first time was it was a real eye-opener, and it was an experience. And stuff like that, it's still young, so it's like a whole new world sort of thing. And, I didn't speak the language, so there was sort of lots of things to adjust to. My mum spoke some Amharic, which is an Ethiopian language, so we communicated like that as to what was happening and what was taking place in terms of the refugee status, and them adopted me. It was sort of, it just happened. It wasn't planned that it was going to be like that. It just through circumstance, through my father leaving, going back to Ethiopia, they took me on as one of their own. My mum knew what poverty was like in Ethiopia. She too had come from there. So not wanting to send me back to that, not wanting me to go back there, they took me in. I would later find out that my mother was ill as well in Ethiopia. So that was part of the reasoning for the adoption. So it was all done. It was pretty unceremonious, really, for such a big life event. But yeah, and that was life. That was life from then. So it was pretty, yeah. So we moved around a bit more, actually. There's a bit of a hoppy sort of thing. So we then, my father's work, he worked for the my now adopted father, who's my father, he worked for the British War Grave Commission. So his job meant that you'd have to travel every 3 years. And in doing so, we'd pack and leave and we'd move. So we moved to Belgium, and then from Belgium to South Africa. And then from South Africa, I then came to England. Yeah, so I've been 17, 18, yeah, came to England. It's weird sharing testimony because I look back at it now and I know with this state of mind that I'd won the lottery, you know. I went from living in a mud hut to having things that other people wouldn't have, having access to clothes and to schools and to like running water and to food and just to privileges that people wouldn't have from my background and from where I was. So looking back at it now, it was like a lottery ticket, you know, and like I said, it wasn't meant to happen like that, and that's how it unfolded, and that's how life is. So that's how it panned out. But when I was growing up, I was very angry and I was very bitter, and I was sort of, you know, I resented my mother for giving me up. My father wasn't present in my life, so I was very angry with him. So, and I was a nightmare for my adopted parents, you know, because I didn't know who I was. I'm trying to learn a language. I'm trying to fit in into this culture, and things weren't explained. You know, it's like we got up every 3 years and we left. And no sooner I just adjusted, we were leaving. No sooner I just adjusted, we would then move again. So with that, I rebelled a lot and I lashed out. And in doing so, I fell with the wrong friends and with the wrong crowds. And that led me to drugs, you know, and that led me to drinking. At first, it just started off as recreational and, you know, nightclubs and stuff like that, and just parties and stuff like that. But then after, it just escalated, and I was just, yeah, I was taking drugs by then. By the time I came to England, I was heavily into cocaine at the time. I was drinking a lot excessively. I'd taken acid and I'd taken pills and stuff like that. And yeah, and I arrived in England. And when I arrived, I arrived with the thinking that, you know, I had a chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to show everyone that I didn't need them. I wanted to show my dad that it didn't matter if he was gone, if he was there or not. My mum passed away after I'd moved, so that conversation could never be had, and I was really bitter and angry at her as well. So coming to England is just, I was showing my adopted parents that I didn't need them, my biological dad that I didn't need him, and my mum I was really angry at. So I was trying to prove something. I was trying to make something of myself, really. Yeah. No, I was taking drugs I was smoking weed in Belgium. I was taking drugs in Belgium. I was sniffing cocaine in South Africa. I was taking drugs there as well, yeah. And then the drug use just escalated. When I came to England, I started working straight away. And yeah, and as I was working, the money I had and everything I squandered, you know, and yeah, I was heavily into drugs. And then when I came to the UK, I started using heroin and crack as well. And that just blew everything out the water because I couldn't function in my workplaces. I was trying to function and I was trying to get on, but I couldn't. So yeah, that's when it was just full blown, and I ended up homeless from that. Jobs I'd had, I squandered. Homes that I'd lived in, I squandered. I couldn't pay bills. I couldn't keep up with the two-faced sort of lie. Like I couldn't work and do drugs. Something had to give, you know, and that side, the normality of everyday life gave in, and I fully succumbed to living an addicted, a junkie's lifestyle. And I was homeless and I was taking drugs. And to be fair, like there was a sense of belonging. It's a weird thing to say, but like, you know, I had a sense of belonging. There's like, you know, you're living in the streets, there's a street community, there's a homeless community, there's people there that they're doing the same thing as you. So there's this like, this unit of like, you know, a dysfunctional family, but then again, all families are dysfunctional anyway. So it felt like, you know, it's what I knew, like, you know, we'd be stealing from each other and we'd be doing drugs with each other. Someone would make money and then you'd come collectively and put your money in a pot and then you go do drugs, but at the same time you're hiding the drugs from each other, and, you know, one's sleeping, so you're stealing. Like, it was very, yeah. It wasn't good. In no way, shape, or form was it good. But there was this weird sense of belonging, and, you know, and you're all in that life together. So you sort of look at the world and you say, the world's got a problem. Like, it did nothing for me. The world doesn't love me, so I'm lashing out at the world, you know. Like, I'm you have this mentality of you're owed something. So, if I'm being perfectly honest, like I've thought about it now, and on this side of my life, I've thought about my drug addiction and why I took it and stuff like that. And in the early days, I used to say, like, I had abandonment issues and I was hurt, and I know those things have a part to play in it. Like psychologically, they do 100%. I'm not, but initially, my drug taking started because I enjoyed it. And then that's the honest truth. I enjoyed taking drugs. I enjoyed the feeling it gave me. I enjoyed the buzz. I enjoyed the high, the fun time that followed it. But when they start wearing off, you then have to deal with like this sort of emptiness that's there, and that emptiness was always there, and it grew. The more I did drugs, that emptiness after. So there was a need to take more drugs just to like now feel this emptiness that was there. And then that's what it was, like previous hurts and stuff, like I was angry, like, but I was angry because now I know that I'm sensitive. I was angry because I was sensitive. Like I've been let down by my father, I've been let down by people in my life, I've been let down. So I was very sensitive to those things, and instead of dealing with them, I masked them with anger, what I mean? And in my anger, I went out and I was like, I'm taking drugs because of those things. It wasn't. If I'm being perfectly honest, I enjoyed it, and it got out of control. It's just like no pun intended, but like it snowballed, It just was one thing after another, and it escalates. And the more drugs you take, the higher your tolerance goes up. The higher your tolerance goes up, the more drugs you need to take to get the buzz you were once getting, And it's a vicious cycle, and you start doing it, and you can't function. Like your mind doesn't work as good, your body doesn't work as good. So you start compromising on things that you wouldn't have otherwise. Your morals start to go out the window. Your standards start to drop. Your speech is not as it was. So you can't like fit back into society as much as you'd like to. So you sort of now, you've carved and put yourself in this box. So now you just function in that box, which is being a drug addict, like, right? And it's a slippery slope. It really is. It's a slippery slope, like. And then I found myself there, And then when you're in it, you're like, hey, I'm here anyway, and I might as well make the most of it. Which is yeah. There's various situations where, like, I'd often take drugs in crack houses. So crack houses is like people go there and they do their drugs. Instead of doing it on the street, you'd have someone, you'd give the person whose house it was some drugs, and they'll let you stay there and do your drugs, sort of thing. And they were very hostile environments because there was a small space with lots of traffic, different people coming in and out. You couldn't be aware, and your senses, you're not all there as well, so you can't equate for who's in, who's out, what's happening. Fights were constantly breaking out. Like drug dealers were feeling aggrieved, like junkies were stealing drugs off them, or these things often happened, and fights would break out. Numerous times knives were pulled on me, like, there's sometimes like they were pulled to my neck, to my chest and stuff like that. But nothing ever came of it to that. I've got scars and stuff like that, but nothing ever came out of it that was like life threatening, but it could have, it was there. Like if you have a knife to your neck, like it just needs one instance of someone just lapse in concentration, or just lapse in judgment, or just doing something. There were threats, but there were threats that could have been followed, and I found myself in these compromising situations constantly, and it's weird, like you tend to go back to them. You sort of, when you're in that life, it happens so often that it becomes almost normal. So you sort of, all said and done, you go about, you get more drugs, or you go about your day, and the next day you find yourself in the same crack house, you know what I mean? And these things happen, and you become so numb to them, as if to think that that's a normal way to function and a normal way to be. So I didn't have it. I didn't have a high regard for my life. Like, I didn't, at that stage when I was in the depth of my addiction, I didn't, I didn't have these profound thoughts of like, what is life, and what are you doing, and why are you doing it? And I was taking drugs. Like that's what I was doing. As far as I was concerned, that was my main concern. Like, and as long as I was doing that, whatever. And death came with it. Like I know it sounds crazy to say, but you sort of go, yeah, I've seen people die, but you don't think it will happen to you, like, right? So you're sort of naive. Like, yeah, I was very naive. But so when I grew up, my adopted mom was a Christian. So we went to church. She spoke about God constantly, and she took us to church. Well, begrudgingly, I didn't have a choice, as a kid. So as far I wanted, so rugby games were on Sundays and football games were on Saturdays. So I used to miss some rugby games, I used to miss some football games, and it used to annoy me because I'd be sat in church and I'd be getting angrier at God, like, you're stopping me from going around, like, being with my friends. And that's sort of just, I wasn't interested. As far as I was concerned, my mom was crazy, you know what I mean? And she used to constantly, like, my mom's like a woman of God, and she loves God, and her answer to everything is God, you know what I mean? And at the time, like, I wanted nothing to do with it, so it was very frustrating. So I knew of God, I didn't want to know God, I knew, like, she told me who he was, and I've been to enough church services to know. But when I'd moved out, like, I never went to church. Like, that, as far as I was concerned, that was it. It was done. So, and you sort of had this. You get brought up with this. You sort of fear this, like, it's almost this ogre in the sky, and you're like, oh, if I do something bad, he's not gonna be pleased. But I'm in the depths of addiction. Like, I'm doing something bad, and I haven't died, so therefore, like, there is no God. That was my thinking, like. But there was a fear in a weird way, like, there was a fear that, how do you put it? There wasn't a fear of God, I know now, because I was doing those things and living in sin. So there was just the idea of a fear of a God, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah. Then, yeah. I was trying to do a withdrawal one time, so I'd kept my shame away from my family. Like, they knew I was in addiction, but I didn't want to bring it home, and I didn't want them to see me, and I didn't want that part of my life to be exposed to them. So, because it meant I'd failed, right? It meant, like, I'd gone out there trying to make it in the world, and really I'd bombed it, and really, like, I really failed, and I needed their help, and I didn't want to, so I strived for ages and ages not to come home. But there was one time I was in a bad way, and I had nowhere to go, I had nowhere to turn. So my mother and father then moved back home, and they were living close by. So I went over there to do a rattle, which is like a withdrawal from the drugs, and try to stop for the umpteenth time, and I went there and I used heroin, and I was, as I arrived, I was okay because I just used heroin and everything, and I thought to myself, okay, I'll just go there, I'll sleep for a few days, I'll be sick, and then I'll reevaluate and I'll see where it goes. Anyway, I was on their couch trying to do a withdrawal and everything, and my mother brought this pastor in from a local church, and he began to speak, and and I was out of it at the time anyway, but he was speaking about Betel and all these other places you could go to, and you could get help, and you could get and as far as I was concerned, it went over my head. Needless to say, a few days later, I left, I went out to use drugs again, and I went back to the life I knew and everything. And then a few months passed by, or even, a few months passed by, and I was again at the bottom of the bottom. I'd used drugs, I was doing a withdrawal. I had no way of acquiring more drugs at this time. I was just really in a bad place, and I needed help, I really needed help. And his name came to mind, something triggered me, you know what I mean? Just the thought of him came to mind, and I went like, I don't know about this place he's going on about, I didn't even know it was Betel, but he told me anyway. And I got hold of him, and we made a call in his office, and I was high at the time. We were making a call, and my head's like spinning and hitting his drawers upstairs and whatnot in this little office. I remember it because I'm sat in his little office upstairs, and his wife's there on the computer, and they've got another guy who works at the church, and we're in this room, and my head's just banging back against this filing cabinet that was there, and I'm just flying forward and waking up, and he spoke me through it. I called Betel, I did an interview, and they said, can you come tomorrow? And yeah, why not? You know what I mean? Well, why not? And 100% truth be told, I didn't come wanting to get help, right? I came just to have a change in geographical location. I thought to myself, I could go to Birmingham and do drugs there. So I didn't. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't think to myself, let me go there, get help, and get clean and come off drugs. Like I enjoyed taking drugs. I did. And at that time, like I hated the withdrawals. I hated everything that associated with it. I hated everything that came with it. But when I was high, and it was good. And I didn't want to stop at the time. Yeah. And we came down and I was sleeping in the car because my drugs were wearing off now, and I'm feeling a certain way, right? So he's driving down and he's got his convertible, and I'm coming in and we come into bed. I don't know what to expect if I'm being, but I had no idea what to expect. I didn't. I'm sure I was told it was a Christian ministry. I'm sure I was told of how we slept and what we did and how it operated. I was told. I couldn't recall for the life of me. So going into it, I was just like, whatever, right? So we turned up at the door of my house. We went in and we went in there, and there was people, and it was lively, and there was noise, and it was summertime, I remember. So the sun was shining, the windows were open, and there was light coming in. There was a pool table and everything. And I thought to myself, like, what is going on here, like, right? So he sat down with me, and I spoke to some of the guys. They explained what happened, how the process works, and what you're required to do. And I wasn't going to stay, right? So I didn't care. I heard them, but I wasn't listening. And yeah, that was it. That was my first experience when I walked through the doors of Betel, like, you know what I mean? It was, yeah. It was, I remember there was a sense of like, there was a sense of calmness there, there was a sense of like you were out in the sticks and you were out away from it all, and you could really do something here, like if you wanted to. Not that I wanted to, but I got that feeling. Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't gonna stay. So I sat down. They were cooking dinner. There was KFC and there was salmon at the time. And I thought to myself, yeah, hey, listen, it's just I'll eat. You know what I mean? That's what I was thinking. I'll eat. I'll stay for dinner. Like I'll be a fool to give up a free meal, right? I've been homeless, so I wasn't eating well. Like, and I was withdrawing, so I couldn't even eat. That was a joke. So I was feeling like, oh man, like But yeah, so. Then I said I want to sleep. I could really do with a sleep, like, I could really do with a good night kip, like, and that didn't happen. So I didn't get what I wanted to do. I couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep. So I'm like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, get a bit better. Just do your rattle. It'll take some time. And after you've done that, get a decent meal down. You get a few nights sleep, and then go back and carry on what you were doing. You know what I mean? You're in a new place, you don't know the area, you don't want to go out there all scrawny and weak and stuff. People will eat you up and you won't really get that far. And you just won't. You don't know the lay of the land here. So get your strength back, get some food, get some sleep, and then go out there and start using drugs again. That was the plan, right? So I did my rattle. It was just painful. I did a detox, and it was bad. I was puking, I was sick, I couldn't sleep, I was achy, I was sweaty, I was hot, I was cold. I was just, my emotions were high, they were low. I was like almost like the verge of just depressed, and I was like manic highs, and I'm thinking, what is going on, like, right? And every morning we had to get up to do devotionals at Windmill House. So you'd get up and someone would share and there'd be music and stuff. And I went to these things and I'm like, this God person and just not leave me alone. Like, I'm like, again with this, like, and it was just doing my head in. And if anything, that's what made me want to run, because I remember when I was doing a rattle, and my mother used to play like worship music and stuff, and it used to cut through me like a knife and butter. And I just think, like, why is she playing that? Like, why is that thing on? Like, and I'm thinking, it just kills, it grits, right? And here was that same kind of music, and I'm just thinking, why are they doing this? Like, But you begin chatting to the guys there, and you hear their story, and you hear similarities in their drug use and in their sort of hardship, and they understood. It's a peer-led program, so they understand that you speak the same language. They know where you are. They'd been there. They'd come on the program. They'd done their rattles. So there was that thing of going, all right, okay, at least these people kind of get it. They know, what I mean? My pain and my hurts, they're mine. No one can get that, but like they have an understanding of what it is to use drugs. They have an understanding of how hard it is. They have an understanding of what it does to your life, to your body, to your mind. So, that I'm sure in the back of my head, not I thought of it at this time, but I'm sure in the back of my head that equated to me staying there a bit longer. But then again, it was a month-to-month thing. I was leaving 1 month, I was staying the next. I was leaving 1 month, I was staying the next. And I thought to myself, like, once I did my detox and everything, I thought to myself, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? You're just going to go back to what you know. You're just going to do that anyway. And I thought to myself, and now I was weighing it up. The lure of drugs and the romance had sort of faded away. That, like, you have this fantasy mindset. You just remember the good times, but you don't remember the bad, right? But you seem to be like that continuously. But when you're in a state of drug use, you tend to be in that mindset. You just think about the high. You don't think about the come down or anything like that. And here I am, like a few months in, I've slept, I've ate, I've worked, I've had conversations, I've gone to these devotionals, just begrudgingly sort of thing. But now I'm not fantasizing as much about it as I was. I'm seeing the bad parts of it. I'm seeing how I hurt people. I'm seeing how my actions impacted my family, impacted my friends that I'd lied to, that I cheated, that I stole from. So I'm there and I'm thinking about this stuff, and it's not as the lure of getting high isn't as deep as it was. It's still there, mind you, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like enough to drive me out the door, because at times it used to be like that. At times I could think of nothing but like just running to a drug dealer's house or running to go do drugs. It consumed me. That's all it was. But now I'm here in this setting, in this environment, and it's a bit different. So then, and it went on. And then about one morning, it was about 3 or 4, and then I couldn't sleep. So I came downstairs 3 in the morning, and I was listening to worship music, and I just started crying. And I'm bawling, like I'm just tears, like I my shirt's soaked, and I'm crying, and I'm crying at God. I'm shouting at him, like I don't even know what I'm saying, like I don't even know if there is a God, or but I'm having this conversation and I'm going for it, like. And anyway, so everyone's starting to wake up, so I wash my face, I dust myself off, I go back to bed and pretend like nothing happened. I go back conducting myself as if like I'm really angry and really bitter and really twisted, but something had changed, For all intents and purposes, everyone was looking at me like, oh, something's, but I know inside I'm kind of happy. It's a weird thing, but I'm kind of like, I'm like, maybe, could it be, could I so another night, same thing. I go downstairs, I cry, and then I go back upstairs, go to sleep, pretend like nothing happened, and this goes on for weeks. And I'm done, like, I'm just really like, I'm going to devotionals, I'm tapping my feet, I'm looking at the words of worship, and I'm kind of singing them, and there's talks of like lyrics like, you've been set free, like fear has no hold on me and stuff like that. And I'm saying, all right, yeah, I feel, all right, maybe, maybe I don't need drugs, maybe like I can be normal, maybe, maybe God's real, and these things start circulating around your mind, right? So and then they did an altar call at church, and I went forward and I gave my life, and that was a slow process as well. And then I had to call my mum and tell her that, okay, maybe this God character you kept going on about and I ridiculed you about is actually real, and you were right. And that was a bitter pill to swallow, and I couldn't for the life of me like do it. I really couldn't. I was dodging her calls and everything, but at the same time I was sort of going and praying and stuff, but I knew I needed to call her. So I called her and I told her, and she was very gracious, she was very kind. She said, keep reading your Bible, keep pursuing God, and he's there for you, and he loves you, and he's always been there for you. And it was pretty cool. And we have a wonderful relationship now because of it. And it's her prayers answered as well. She used to pray for me in my addiction. She used to pray over me. She used to tell me about God, and she had to see me go through all the things I went through, and the way I lived, the way I lied, the way I just was. And she saw me as a shell of a human being. She saw me as like never a waste of space. That's the way I viewed myself. But I think she always loved me, but it hurt her and it broke her. I'd said things to her and I'd been a certain way to her, like. So yeah Yeah. I would say first, God hears your prayers. He's not he's not absent. He's there. He hears your prayers. He just has a different line of sight, and he knows what he's doing, and he knows the person that he's molding or the situation that he's creating. And you have to trust that he's in control, and you can pray, you can go to him, you can ask him why things are happening, and you can have an open dialogue. You won't understand, but you can still go to him and ask why you don't understand. And he's a God who comforts us, he's a God who reveals to us, he's a God who shows us, and everything is revealed in due time. Like I'm telling you now, like I sit here, this side of my addiction, I sit here and I would not have believed in God unless I went through what I went through. Because I had it, right? I lived in a house with a woman that loved God. I went to church daily, regularly. We went, we did the things. We did the Sunday schools and the Bible classes and everything, and I did it. But I was numb to it. My heart was hard to it. I was blind to it. I was deaf to it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I then went on this path of destruction and chaos and lying and stealing and cheating and debauchery and just madness. And God used that and turned it and shaped me to the person I am now. And it shaped me, you know what I mean? Those things don't define me, they don't. But they've still shaped me in a way where I have an understanding of what human life is and the value of it and how God is with you. And I can see that, and I can see he was with me all along. I can see that. It's crazy to say, but like through my addiction, I can see he was there with me, and he carried me out of that, and he delivered me. And that's not possible without prayer. It's not, in no way, shape, or form. Those knives that were held to my neck, the knives that were held to my stomach, the places where I'd done drugs and the situations I was in, just in that environment, it's not possible to come out without prayer. It's not. I know it now. I didn't at the time. But things were inches away from happening, and they never happened. And I sit here healthy, and I sit here well, and I sit here with life, and I sit here just with prospects, and I sit here with just a newness. That's not possible without prayer. It's not. You need people to intercede for you. You need people to believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. You need people to bring you before God daily and to petition on your behalf. And people that pray and that are praying for loved ones and that see no way out, keep at it. Keep at it, because God is working, and he'll mold and use that situation for something you can't even imagine. If you told me, like, even five years ago, if you told me you'd be here and you'd be a Christian and you believe in God, and the things that you did, God will now use them for good. The years the locusts say, Jesus will restore to you. I'd have laughed in your face. I would have laughed, and I did at times. My mom used to tell me these things. She goes, "There's hope for you." There's no hope for me. Like, forget it. And now I sit beside, and she smiles. She's gracious about it. But it's through prayer. Yeah, keep praying. She's good. Yeah, I love her to bits, man. I do. I love her to bits. She's a good woman. She's solid. My dad too. My dad too, they're a unit, they won, but they both prayed for me. I said my mom because she was the one doing more of the harassing and the calling, but they're a unit. My dad as well, he's a wonderful man. They stood by me even when I didn't believe in myself, when I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, when I didn't value my life, they valued it enough to persist and to push and to look for me and to cry out for me, and I thank them. I thank both of them, my mom and my dad, and I wouldn't be the man I am now without them. And that, words don't convey. We have a wonderful relationship now. She calls me, I call her, we pray together. I ask her for Bible scriptures and books, and and it's cool. Like, we talk about it, and I'm like, why? What is I could never have imagined, and then that's all she wanted, I suppose. That's all she wanted. I'd had jobs and I'd done things, and I felt that would have made her happy and proud of me. But I don't know, I don't know what is, but I think she's happy I found God. I think she's excited, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, yeah. So right now, so I stayed in Betel, yeah, and after the programs, we say it's about 18 months to 2 years sort of thing. 18 months? Yeah, 18 months to 2 years. And then after that, you can stay on. You can be part of the team that serves here, part of the team that helps here, part of the community still, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, you're done now, you can go. Like, no, it's you're encouraged to give back what was freely given to you. You're encouraged to work with your hands and help in society and help others, and it's the most rewarding thing you can do. It really is. And this is coming from someone who used to be a thief. This is coming from someone who used to like go into places and do things that he shouldn't do. You know what I mean? There is life giving like opportunities to be had from helping others, you know, and here, that's what we do. We give freely what's been freely given to us. And that's the way we operate, and that's the way we work. We work with men and women coming in daily, that them too were in addiction, that them too were in a dark place, that them too were alienated from their families. We help people with their physical addiction first and foremost. We help them with a spiritual walk. We help them with the restoration of their family. We help them to integrate themselves back into society with work day to day. We have various workplaces. There's gardens, there's furniture businesses, there's cafes, there's umpteen things to do here. There's a creative team. We do drama work and stuff like that. And that's brought a lot of healing for me as well, that aspect of it. But it's wonderful. It's wonderful. You know, I get up. The day to day varies now. I do a bit of this, a bit of that. There's a furniture shop. I tend to work there. I'm doing a theology course now as well, which is pretty cool. It's such as my love for Christ. It's just, you know, and that's something I thought I'd never do, you know, and that's, yeah. I help in the kitchen. I wash dishes as well. And from time to time, I help on the donations. When the food comes in, like we sort the food out and put it into different places and distribute it between the families. I do that. So no one day looks the same. Today I'm doing this, which is pretty cool in itself as well. And you can impact people like that, right? It's a ministry that gives. It's a ministry that just pours itself out. It's a ministry that creates a platform for other people to stand on and give. It's a ministry that welcomes the broken and the people that are just discarded by the world, and welcomes them in and loves them and shows them that they're accepted. And then you can have prospects, right? When your mind is clear and your body's well, and you know you're right with God and your thinking is good, you can impact the world. And it might be nothing, you know what I mean? It might, in the grand scheme of things, it might be, oh, I'm just helping one person, I'm just making a cup of tea for someone that's coming, or they're doing a rattle. But it's something. It really is. And that's the only way we can do it. If we do it individual by individual by individual by individual, and that's the only way we can like make a greater change. It's like, you know, of course it would be good to speak publicly and like transform many lives, but at the end of the day, the nitty gritty, the hardship of it is what we do here. The day in, the day out, you know, one guy comes in, you have to nurse him back, you have to help him, and people leave as well. So you're never guaranteed a success, you know what I mean? But you have to dust yourself off, get up and go again, sort of thing. And we do that. My mom and dad think, what do they think of what I'm doing here? They love it. They come down and see us. They can't believe it. They come down and see us, and they, you know, like I said, they believe in God, and they see the need for it. And it's an epidemic now as well. Drugs are thrive. There's homelessness everywhere. You just have to look anywhere and see that it's a thing that needs addressing. And it's being addressed here. And it's being dealt with in the best way possible. We know to through Christ, and experiencing and welcome people into that life. And it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. It really is. It's nothing better than like helping others, you know. And you've been helped yourself as well, you know what I mean? What kind of person would you be? Like, you've been taken all your life, get something back. Like, you feel worthwhile, you feel good, you feel nice, you know what I mean? You feel right with God. And yeah. The difference Jesus has made in my life is drastic. It's chalk and cheese, it's black and white. For me, it's clear because I lived in darkness. Now I live in light. I used to lie. I tried my utmost not to lie. I used to be untrue. I used to deceit. I try not to do those things. I try to live in a total different way. I try to be accountable. I try to be loving. No one's perfect. I'm not even close. Christians aren't perfect, you know. That's not the idea that people need to have of Christianity. It's not that you become a Christian and you're perfect. No, it's that you become a Christian and you realize your imperfection, your need for a savior, your need for someone else to help you. I couldn't help myself in the situation I was in. I couldn't be my own God. I couldn't, because I was flawed, I was wrong. And I can speak for myself, I speak for no one else. But in the depth of my heart, I know the depth of my heart, and I know how much of a sinful person I am. I need a God who is not those things. I need a God who can save me from those things. That's why you believe in God, because you can't help yourself. You can't. You wish you were God, but you can't be. You can't have that burden and that mantle and that responsibility. The weight is too much. We crumble under decision making. We crumble under heat. God doesn't. More than anything else, he's true. And that's the way we need to look at it. Think it out. Think like you would any other thing. Why do you believe in anything? Because it's the truth. Sit down and have an honest conversation and look at the evidence. And don't just believe because other people believe. Don't just follow because other people follow, because they'll crumble and they'll fall. But believe because you've looked and you've seen and you've thought out the implications of what if there is a God and what that equates to. And when you begin to pray, when you begin to have a relationship, the change that takes place within you, inside of you, and the transformation that happens. And it's something undeniable. You believe in God because it's the truth. No other reason than that.
Brilliant. Great.
Nice one, bro.